What went wrong for Nick Ball in his knockout loss to Brandon Figueroa? Let's talk about it. Now, Nick Ball is an exceptional fighter. He's done very, very well to become one of the most dominant forces in the featherweight division. He has gone through the likes of Raymond Ford, who was touted as one of the next top prospects, or top fighters, should I say, from the USA. He also got a draw against Ray Vargas in his first World Championship attempt. Unfortunately, it didn't go his way in that one. He got a draw, but every man and their dog knew that the judges' scorecards were absolutely bogus on that night, and Nick Ball should have got the victory in that one. Got a Ronnie Rios on his resume, who was a decent fighter. You've got TJ Doheny, who he made retire on his stool. He's also defeated an undefeated fighter in Sam Goodman, who I believe was 20-0 going into the Nick Ball fight. But he did come unstuck against that man up there, which is Brandon Figueroa. So where did it all go wrong? Well, simply put, this is the first time I've ever seen Nick Ball get tired in a fight. And that is not down to Nick Ball's gas tank one bit. That is down to the game plan of Brandon Figueroa. From round one, you could see Figueroa's game plan. Every time Ball came in with that very, very big lunging right hand, lead right hand, that he throws continuously through fights, Figueroa was looking to counter with an uppercut or a straight to the body, and he was landing them shots 9 times out of 10. Ball could not get out of the way. And as the fight progressed, you could see Nick Ball was getting more and more tired. He was taking more and more deep breaths, and the gas tank just started to fade. I've said many a time with Nick Ball that he is a fantastic fighter, but if he's going to go up against the elites of the division, if he's going to go up against the likes of Naoya Inoue, who's potentially going to move up to featherweight at some point in his career, he needed to get better, or does still actually need to get better at defending the body shots, because at the moment, any fighter, even the fighters who are a little bit less experienced and less gifted than a Brandon Figueroa, they're finding the body of Nick Ball continuously, and that is exactly what happened in this fight. That is what wore Nick Ball down, and Nick Ball, without an engine on him, because of how undersized he is and because of how his style is, really, he gets caught out continuously with that. And other than being tired, Nick Ball also couldn't really get his game plan going. You know, he was coming in and he was throwing his shots, but for every one shot that was an eye-catching shot that Figueroa got caught with, Figueroa caught Ball with 3-4 shots. He was getting the better of Nick Ball in the clinches. It was just an all-round fantastic performance from Brandon Figueroa. He really did take away all of Ball's advantages in that fight. A fantastic game plan, and his coaches, his team, Manny Robles, you know, they really, put out the blueprint, really, to beat Nick Ball. Another thing I did notice from Nick Ball is that after he'd gone in there and thrown them shots that normally would back an opponent up, when the opponent comes forward and when they are letting them sort of shoe-shining, almost arm punches go, Nick Ball sometimes tries to take a little bit of a breath, and that probably comes because he's putting quite a lot of energy into every single punch that he throws. After throwing them punches, the boy's going to need a little bit of a breather. And again, that would have realistically worn Nick Ball down, because after he's throwing them shots that normally back opponents up, normally sort of stop them in their tracks, really, if you're then getting hit when you're not used to getting hit, it's going to drain your gas tank, especially if the opponent that you're against, like Brandon Figueroa there, is targeting your body quite heavily, is getting on the inside, is tying your arms up, but still throwing shots in the clinch, and you physically cannot get them off because, the guy's as strong as you, if not a little bit more stronger, and they've got the height, they've got the range, they've got the reach, the arms are more gangly, etc, etc. You're gonna start to gas in fights. Ball did have success. This wasn't a domination by Brandon Figueroa by any stretch of the imagination. We did a live on TikTok for this, and you could see a lot of people had Nick Ball up on the cards. A few people had Figueroa up on the cards. Personally, going into the final round, I did have Nick Ball a round up, but there was a few swing rounds in that where they could have gone either way, depending on what you actually like to see. It wasn't all bad of a performance, and to say everything went catastrophically wrong, it would be actually lying there. But now the blueprint's out there to beat Nick Ball, man. It's out there. Anybody can go and capitalise on that. They can utilise the same game plan. If they can take the punches off of Nick Ball like Brandon Figueroa could, and they can come back and punch almost while Nick Ball's punching and come forward and target that body, Nick Ball might have a tough career going forward, because he is very one-dimensional sometimes, or he comes across in that way. It's crazy to say that, because Ball throws punches from all angles. He throws shots from weird angles, man. Some of the punches he throws you wouldn't expect him to throw. Sometimes he will, swap over to a southpaw stance and throw a looping lead right hook, which is insane. But when all of that isn't working and he cannot get inside the reach and it's not quite going his way, we've kind of just seen there that he doesn't really have a plan B. And again, that might be just because he's undersized, man. He is substantially smaller than most of the opponents he's fighting. Was Figueroa 6'2", something like that? Vargas, very, very similar in that fight. Although Nick Ball did manage to utilize his ability and utilize that game plan that he had to perfection in that one, and he should have won that fight. Now, in terms of champions who are currently at featherweight, you've got Angelo Leo, and you have got Shushu Carrington, and you have also got Espinoza. Now, Espinoza's 6'1", so he's going to come unstuck against him if Espinoza can employ the game plan that has kind of been set out there by Brandon Figueroa. Shushu Carrington is a very, very good counterpuncher, as we saw in his last fight. He was getting outboxed at times in that fight, but we just saw that out of nothing, he's got that power to switch someone's lights off, to get them on Bambi legs, and eventually to stop the fight. Now, in terms of Angelo Leo, who is also a champion in that division, that's a 5'6" fighter versus what's Nick Ball, 5'5", 5'4". So more close to Nick Ball's size there. So if Ball's going to become a world champion again, you either take on Figueroa and learn to defend the body, or you go against Angelo Leo, because he isn't going to have them physical advantages over you like the other guys are going to have. But yeah, man, where it all went wrong for Nick Ball is where it has almost gone wrong for him in the past. The defense to the body. That is it. That is as cut and dried as that. Not being able to have a plan B, not being able to deal with that kind of shoe sham, arm punching, volume punching fighter, not being able to deal with someone when they are, coming over the top of you, tying your arms up, hitting you in the clinch, etc., etc. And yeah, again, if you tire Nick Ball out, he's going to struggle. He's going to struggle in the back end of the fight. He's going to get clipped. And that is the reason why Nick Ball got knocked out. Nothing else, nothing to do with his chin. Just simply because he was absolutely knackered. And he got caught with a massive, massive right hand. And that was lights out, man. But I want to know your opinions in the comments. Will Nick Ball become a world champion again if he sticks around at featherweight? Could he beat any of the other champions? Would he potentially beat Figueroa in a rematch? And where do you think it all went wrong for Nick Ball against Brandon Figueroa? For more boxing content, hit that subscribe button. And as always, a like, favourite, a save, a share, repost are all appreciated. Peace out.